This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday Pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Gut check Saturday on the road for Alabama and Auburn. The Crimson Tide are in the swamp of Gainesville for the SEC on CBS game of the week, 2:30 against Florida. Brian Harsin gets his first real test as Auburn's new coach. Welcome to Happy Valley with 107,000 rabid Nittany Lions fans. The entire college football world is still buzzing about the miracle at Doak Campbell Stadium. Jacksonville State pulls off the last-second upset with a desperation heave. We're going to go inside the play that made the Gamecocks season and talk to the players who made it happen. It's a tough time to be a college athletic director nowadays. Name, image, and likeness, conference realignment, COVID-19. There's a lot to talk about. And we dive into all of that with Alabama's man in charge, Greg Byrne. Our exclusive one-on-one interview with him is coming up. Welcome into College Football Saturday, the first of a full slate on the 2021 season. Chris Brees, glad to have my man Jim Dunaway back with us. The next round live, you guys are taking off, and you're talking a lot of college football, too.
Oh, man, excited for today. You don't know how well your boat is built until you put it in the water. And today, Auburn puts their boat in the water. And really, a young Bryce Young finds out how good his boat is with that O-line for Alabama on the road. So it's a day to find out if your ship will sink or if it's good for rough seas ahead.
One thing we're going to find out today, the one question is nobody has any idea what to expect, what's going to happen. Both games on the road, and CBS 42 is everywhere across the country on this Saturday. We have team coverage from Gainesville. Taylor Kaufman's down there live. We'll get to her in a little bit. Dee Jackson is covering Jacksonville State right now for us in their game against North Alabama coming up a little bit later on tonight. We have to start, though, with what's going on down in Gainesville. You know, Alabama goes into this game a 14.5-point favorite. Everybody thinks it's going to be a massive beatdown, but why would that not be the case?
It would not be the case because if you go back to the SEC championship last year, Florida played Alabama as good as anybody else in the nation did. And this Florida team's very different. About 50% of the talent they had last year, but Alabama replaced a lot of the O-line. The matchup to watch today, Alabama's rebuilt offensive line against that front seven of Florida, and how much Todd Grantham will turn up the heat on the quarterback, Bryce Young.
The one stat they love right there at the bottom. In Gainesville, they are 8-2. That's what they're going to hang their hats on. But veterans on this team, they may be lacking in 2021. Taylor Kaufman out there live in Gainesville with what Alabama's been talking about all weekend long. Taylor.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, we have Alabama fans lined up behind me. This is where the team's going to come through here in about 30 minutes. Nick Saban was unhappy with his team last week going into the Mercer game with their lack of focus, lack of inattention at practice. But this week, hopefully things are different as it's an SEC championship rematch here in Gainesville.
We've had a lot better energy, a lot better focus, really practiced a lot better. So I'm not disappointed in the way we're preparing for this game. We're going to play a really good team in the SEC and a tough place to play.
We've heard all about the swamp, especially from us coming from the West Coast. Even in California, we've heard about the swamp and what a hostile environment that's going to be.
And you know people want to knock you down. It's just like you got to stand up for yourself. Always, you got to stand your ground. And that's what we come to Alabama for.
They're really experienced up front. As far as D linemen and linebackers, and they also have some experience in the secondary. They're really good in the secondary, really versatile. They can run, so it's a really solid defense.
They do have a two-quarterback system. I don't think you prepare differently. You know, both guys have ability to make plays passing, and they run the same sort of quarterback runs with both guys. We're certainly looking forward to the challenge because will kind of tell us a little bit about who we are, where we are, where we got to go, what we need to do to get there.
I think it's more anticipation. I just can't wait for them to play, and I just can't wait to see Alabama football.
That was Alabama quarterback Bryce Young's dad. We'll hear from Craig Young a little later in the show. Brees, back to you.
Taylor, thanks so much. You know, when you think about Florida and Alabama, the days of Jim McElwain still ring in Florida fans' heads. You got to think that. But when Dan Mullen comes in, you got to think that this team believes they should be competing with Alabama. The question right now is, do they have the talent to do that today?
Yeah, they do have the talent. I don't know if it's just ready and ripe on the vine right now for it to happen. I do believe Anthony Richardson is the future at Florida. He'll be a championship quarterback probably in his time with the Gators or somewhere down the road. He's got that kind of skill set. I don't know if he's ready today for the start. Emory Jones is the guy I would expect to go first. But I would give him a big, heavy dose if I was Florida of Anthony Richardson, because he does remind me a lot of Nick Fitzgerald and what Dan Mullen did with him in Starkville.
And very unfair to give the Tim Tebow correlation there right now. It's the kind of style they definitely want. And for Alabama, I think we're still waiting to see who the superstar is going to be to break out and take over games, because you've got, JoJo Earle could be the guy, Mechie could be the guy, Brian Robinson. Bryce Young, you may call him the best quarterback in the SEC, but who's going to show up, and that might be a difference for this team today.
Yeah, I expect at some point you would see Bryce Young run the football more than we saw in the Miami game. That's still a bullet they have in the holster there. But I do expect Alabama to start using that four-headed monster running back room that they have. And I look for them to try to run the football today on the Florida Gators and try to establish that offensive line as one of the best in the league.
It is going to be loud in Gainesville, and it's definitely going to be loud tonight, 6:30 Central Time in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, when Auburn gets their first legit test under Brian Harsin as the new head coach, because let's face it, you're not going to learn much in games against Alabama State and against Akron. For this team, everybody is talking about how awful, I mean really bad, they have been against top 10 teams. Look at this since 2011. 34 games, they're 9-25 overall. Went 0-3 last year, probably a big reason why Gus Malzahn got fired. You see that stat at the bottom? They're 3-4 against the number one team in the country. I think Alabama and Georgia will be the reason for that. So this Auburn team, yes, you can say they've had issues on the road playing in big games, but that's why Brian Harsin got hired, right? They want to change the mentality of how they feel on the road, and that all begins tonight.
Part of playing on the road, in a big crowd, you do have crowd noise. You do need to deal with that, but it's all the other things too. Be a guy that embraces that. Enjoy the opportunity to play in somebody else's house and to go in there and play good football.
It's gonna bring a lot of energy to our team being in that stadium. It's gonna be a good atmosphere, and we prepare when we're ready to go out there and handle our business.
To me, it's more really about the mindset that you take into the week and what you have as you look forward to playing on the road and somewhere else. It really starts upstairs, and it's already begun.
Our preparation going into this game is going to be the same as it's been in camp and these past two previous weeks for the two opponents we played. So we're just going to go out there, we're going to do what we do. Not going to do anything special, change up anything. We're just going to go out there, play Auburn football, fast and physical, and the result, y'all going to see the results.
It comes down to the maturity of our team, the leadership of our team, and people come out of nowhere when all of a sudden you're gonna play in a game on the road against Penn State, and the guys just have to be mature enough not to listen to all that and stay focused on the things that we've been doing that have got us to where we are right now.
In 8 years under Gus Malzahn, you could make the argument that it was same old story on the road. Too conservative on the play calling. When are we going to open things up and figure it out on offense? Does this team have that ability right now, though?
I don't know if they've got the playmakers on the edge to do that, but they may have the best running back in the country. And you would expect tonight's game to look a lot like what Penn State's game with Wisconsin looked like. And in that game, Wisconsin's offense didn't score a lot of points against Penn State, but they were in the red zone with scoring opportunities a lot, and they turned the ball over, or they missed field goals, or they had field goals blocked. That's where Auburn, when they get those scoring opportunities tonight, will have to end up taking advantage of those. I think they will lean on Tank Bigsby a lot. That calms Bo Nix down when Tank's able to run, and I expect you see Tank used more in this game than he has the last two games combined.
And he needs help from Bo Nix, just like every other time out there as well. Auburn's defense is going to get a heavy dose of two fantastic wide receivers, Jahan Dodson and Parker Washington. Now, this has been a defense that keeps this team in games lately. Sean Clifford, is he the kind of guy who can expose any kind of weaknesses.
Well, I think you get a lot of the same type quarterback in both Bo Nix and Sean Clifford, and both of them have had really good wins at home. They've had some disasters on the road, so you get a lot here. For me in this matchup, Dotson is the guy that's going to try to take the top off the Auburn defense. I really love the Auburn secondary. I think they'll neutralize Dotson. I'm more worried tonight about the running game and what they're able to do with that Auburn defensive line, who still's yet to prove to me that they're up to Auburn defensive line standards.
And when Auburn won these games under Gus Malzahn, it was miracles at the end of the game for them to win. You're talking kick 6, the Georgia game in 2013 as well. Kind of like what happened to Jacksonville State at Florida State last week, the play everybody is still talking about. We're going to get an inside look at this last-second Hail Mary at Doak Campbell Stadium coming up. And these Alabama fans are already out in droves in Gainesville. They are an hour ahead of us, about 1:15 Eastern time right there. They are awaiting the Walk of Champions. Alabama set to arrive in about 15 minutes.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday Pregame, presented by Pepsi.
Bo Nix has had some wonderful moments as Auburn's quarterback the last couple of years. Basically, all of them are at home, though. Look at the way he has performed at home against on the road. At home, 22-3 touchdown to interception ratio. On the road, 10-10. That is not going to cut it tonight when they are in Happy Valley. And on Jim's show this week, Nix talked about what makes road games more of a challenge.
It gets loud enough to where your voice can't be heard and nobody else can be heard. It's just to where it gets so loud to where you just can't hear anything. And no matter, like, it can't even get louder because you just can't hear anything. So that just affects communication and especially on the field communication when you can't go up to someone's ear and speak to them and communicate with them. So it's definitely one of those things that only thing that can compare is experience.
2 years ago, when Bo Nix beat Oregon, I think everybody assumed that he was going to be the next great superstar.
That's right.
We're more than 2 years away now from that. Is he even in your top 5 right now?
He is. He is number 5, and that may be controversial, but he is a veteran quarterback, and so far so good. If Bo keeps playing like he's playing, he's going to stay a top 5 quarterback. We'll learn a lot about the maturity of Bo Nix tonight. JT Daniels, number 4 for me. Didn't play against UAB when they started throwing the ball deep. I got to see JT. He was number 1 to start the year. I got to see him throw the ball deep and use those receivers. Here's my new star,
newcomer,
man. Will Levis. They love this guy in Kentucky, right? Kentucky couldn't throw the ball anywhere forward. They made longer passes on the basketball court before Levis got to town. Now the Penn State transfer is really good. Bryce Young, can't put him number 1 yet, but he's got room to move up there. Love what Bryce Young's doing, especially before the snap, getting the blocking on blitzes ready. He's one of the best in the country against the blitz. But right now, this guy's a star. Matt Corral, they're so fast. The receivers are good. They've got running backs that can catch it. Lane Kiffin calling plays. I got to go Corral 1, Bryce 2 right now.
Yeah, Bo Nix has to be on the list for everybody just because he's won big games. I mean, you can say all the criticism you want about Bo Nix. He has won big games. That's all that matters. I actually would put him ahead of Will Levis.
Wow.
Since Levis is so new, this is because he's so new. Missouri, yeah, it's a conference game. Not exactly thrilled and think that's going to be an answer for Kentucky. I got Nix next because of, again, he's beaten Oregon, he's beaten Alabama. You've got to put him on this list. JT Daniels has the potential, and he has all the headlines, and everybody said he's going to be a great quarterback. That's really my reason why he's on this list. We'll see if Georgia has some big games ahead this year. Bryce Young, because he's only started in 2 games. That's why he's not my number 1. He could easily be number 1. But Matt Corral right now, just what he did last year in a shortened season, has to be up there right now because he has the resume that Bryce Young doesn't have. But again, that can change.
Boy, that game now all of a sudden, if Alabama survives here today on CBS 42 against Florida,
2 weeks.
I'm really excited for Ole Miss, Alabama, and Tuscaloosa to see what Corral does with this Alabama defense.
You got to think it would likely be an SEC on CBS game of the week. All right, and Alabama playing quarterbacks today for Florida. We had hit on this a little bit earlier about how, we're not really sure who's going to be playing much in this game. Emory Jones is expected to be the starter. Anthony Richardson is the new up-and-comer who likely will take over this team at some point. And when you ask Dan Mullen, Hey, who's your quarterback going to be this week? I don't expect a direct answer.
No, we kind of go in with a plan, depending on the game, and we kind of schedule the plan off of each deal. And, there are some circumstances maybe that would change that. But, everybody's kind of on plan going into the game that, hey, you're going to play the third series.
Very cryptic answer there. Fair or not, Richardson's already received comparisons to Tim Tebow light. If he lives up to half that hype, Mullen may have his quarterback of the future right now. All right, more on Alabama coming up a little bit later on in the show, but D. Jackson had an excellent chance this week to talk to one man with CBS Sports who knows a little bit about Alabama and Florida. D.
I got to tell you guys, the best part about this show, my favorite thing, is that we have so many experts. We've got Jim Dunaway, Chris Breeze, and of course, Brian Jones is a man who watches college football extensively. Had a chance to catch up with him to talk about what's ahead for Alabama and for Auburn.
There's going to be a few growing pains, but the great thing about Alabama, they're on autopilot. They just plug in another 4 or 5 star and they keep winning ball games. That leadership will eventually emerge, and so they will be just fine. You look at the stats, though. They're not running the rock. They're about 30 yards below what their average was a season ago. They are still passing it with great efficiency. Bryce Young, of course, taking over. But I think the leadership will eventually emerge, and they'll probably have to lean on that running game a little bit more as teams try to corral Bryce Young and these excellent wide receivers.
Brian, you got the big game, Alabama versus Florida. Who do you like in this one?
Well, you got to go with Alabama. As I said on our show the other night, you can count on Nick Saban having his squad ready, just like you can count on that hotel iron leaking all over your clothes. I think it's going to be a good ball game, a competitive ball game. You look at what Florida's been able to produce in the running game. They've gone from #1 in passing in the nation to #1 in rushing, and that was going to be one of the focuses this coming season is how would they be able to run the ball, losing a talent like Kyle Trask, who's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and losing all those receivers, and of course Kyle Pitts to do everything at tight end.
Okay, Brian, shifting gears now, talking about Auburn at Penn State, and I know you're a little bit biased because you got a crush on these linebackers. That's okay. I know you like these Penn State linebackers, but what is it about this team that really could be a big thorn in the side of quarterback Bo Nix? What does Auburn have to do to gain the edge?
Well, I tell you what, I like Tank Bigsby a ton as well. This guy proved as a true freshman last year that he is a bona fide SEC running back, and he's one of the best in the nation. So it's going to be a wonderful viewing session, Tank Bigsby versus these linebackers for Penn State, because they're very active, and they've got 3 or 4. They're very interchangeable. Sometimes they line them up at rush in, sometimes they're at Mike backer, Will backer, but there's 4 or 5 of those guys that play with force, and that's what I like to see. And these Auburn cats, they know that's the SEC way. So James Franklin has some guys over there that force the issue, and they tackle well. And they're not going to bat 1,000. No one does. Those other teams across the line of scrimmage, they have scholarship players as well. But it should be a great test for Auburn and Brian Harsin, who wants to play physical football. He brought that same mentality he had at Boise State. They play physical, run downhill football, and we'll see how that shakes out. And you mentioned Bo Nix. Doesn't have a great track record on the road. This is going to be a very hostile environment. He should be used to that. Now, his 3rd year in the SEC, but that whiteout at night in Happy Valley is going to be tremendous. And we'll see how he plays now being under new management. Mike Bobo, his 3rd OC in 3 years, if he can stay within the framework of that offense and his mechanics and play well against this secondary for Penn State. It should be a hell of a ball game, and I'm really looking forward to that one.
And it could be a statement game for Bo Nix. Guys, let's send it back to you.
All right, D, thank you very much. Here's the aforementioned Alabama arrival at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. You got to think Nick Saban is just fuming right now for a man who loves staying on a schedule. What They're 19 minutes late.
Yeah, 19 minutes behind the schedule. Somebody's going to pay for that. When Florida comes back to Tuscaloosa, you can count on their buses being stuck on McFarland for hours.
You were up close and personal, shoulder to shoulder with Coach on the radio show on Thursday.
Yeah, we had a really good conversation in the commercial breaks, and a lot of it was about that Florida offensive scheme and how the two different quarterbacks aren't really that different in preparation. He likes his team, he likes the plan, he really likes finding out what he's got this year. He's looking forward to this game today.
He likes his coordinators. There they go right there, and here comes the first team offense. Alabama is no stranger to these hostile environments on the road. Many of these players aren't, though, and that's the big question, if they are ready for a moment like this.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. Last year there was no real environment like this.
Completely different from what they're seeing now.
And the Swamp will be special today, but luckily it's not a night game. It's a little different at night in the SEC than it is at 2:30. That's a little bit of a break for Alabama. A lot of Tide fans will be there, but this is a rare, hard sellout. There are sellouts, but then there's rare, tough tickets for a day game at the Swamp. This is one of them. Florida fans are eager, and they think they've got a chance to upset Alabama today.
You saw how focused Bryce Young looked right there. He is a man who seems so prepared for the biggest of moments. Will he have a monster game in the Swamp? Here on CBS 42, we'll find out at 2:30. But for right now, we'll be right back on College Football Saturday.
This is CBS 42's College Football Saturday Pregame, presented by Pepsi.
You know you're getting close to game time when the players are out there in their pads. Kool-Aid McKintry's had a fantastic couple of weeks for the Crimson Tide so far.
Yeah, Alabama looks good in those road whites, man. It's my favorite Alabama uniform, the roadies.
We're going to get to predictions on this Alabama-Florida game here in a little bit, but first, let's go to the Pac-12, where USC just fired their head coach, Clay Helton. Quarterback coach Dante Williams is the interim. They're playing at Washington State today with their head coach, very little known, Nick Rolovich. Upset for Wazoo. Is it called an upset given how bad USC was against Stanford?
I'm going to go USC here. I think you fired your head coach at a perfect time to where you can have a good season. I haven't liked the quarterback play at Washington State so far. Give me SoCal.
USC won this game by 25 points last year, and they had 5 yards rushing. What does that tell you about what Wazoo is going to be able to do? Unstoppable USC, they're going to win this game, no problem. Mississippi State is going to be playing at Memphis in a game that really is curious because we've seen Mike Leach's boys show a little improvement in a nice win over NC State last week, but Memphis might be one of those underrated teams to take a look at.
They really are, and what I like here is Memphis said to the Mississippi State fans, you can't bring your cowbells into the Liberty Bowl today. Can't do it. Got to leave those on the outside. That makes me mad. I'm going to take State, but this is going to be a scary game. Memphis can pull the upset, but I'm going to ride with Will Rogers and think the Pirate and Will Rogers can pull it off.
If he does well throwing the ball, you got to think Memphis has some problems. They gave up 50 points to Arkansas State. What does that tell you about what's going to happen in this game? I think Mississippi State gets the win. In the Pac-12, Arizona State and BYU an independent team, of course. Arizona State's ranked, BYU's ranked, one of the only ranked matchups this week. Arizona State is -2. You got to wonder, it comes down to Jaden Daniels on the road for Arizona State.
Well, I tell you, you see why I'm bad at this because I'm going with the road team again. I want to take Arizona State here. BYU without Zach Wilson. Impressed with Hall at quarterback and Kalani Sitake's big win against Utah. But I have Arizona State to win the Pac-12 South. And this is not a Pac-12 game, future Big 12, Pac-12 showdown. I'm going to go with the fear of the fort guys.
I'm going to disagree. I think home field advantage means everything in this game, and I'm not really sure if Arizona State's going to have it mentally to keep it together on the road. Okay, the other big game besides Alabama this week, 6:30, Auburn on the road against Penn State. Two teams I know that we don't trust for certain reasons. Penn State whiteout hasn't been great. They're 8-8. Is it good enough solely on that to get a victory against an Auburn team who hasn't shown anything either?
This is an easy Auburn pick for me if the game's in Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be an easy Penn State pick for me with it being in Happy Valley, but not impressed with Sean Clifford. He has digressed from his freshman year to now. I'm not sure this team can run the ball and score the offense the points they need to beat Auburn. I'm going to go with a slight upset here. Take Auburn, turning Sean Clifford over.
Outright win?
Outright win with Roger McCrary having the game of his life.
I'm going to go Penn State just because Clifford's going to be a game manager in this, and I think that's all they're going to need as of right now. Okay, the game of the week in the SEC. Alabama and Florida, two teams who know each other oh so well. But if you are the Florida Gators in this game recently, you're wondering what's gone wrong in the series lately. Well, clearly the Crimson Tide have had the superior talent. The issue is who is going to show up for the Tide as their superstar. And when I talk with Gary Danielson calling the game, he has the same question mark today.
I doubt that in this team that there's going to be an emergence of a Najee Harris or Devontae Smith. It doesn't appear that way to me. But who knows? I mean, it could change. But, the strength of Alabama is they have a lot of players, and they're going to play a lot of players, and everybody who gets on the field is very hungry. And, if your star's the quarterback, that's not the worst thing.
That is for sure. And keys to the game for the Crimson Tide. You're looking at the quarterback on the other side. Got to contain those scrambles.
That's right. Nick Saban loves to play an aggressive defensive style that opens the door for the quarterback to run. They'll be in zone more than usual.
They know they're the better team with talent. Limit those penalties. And then for Florida, don't turn the ball over. You can win a game at home.
You can, but Alabama's defense is one of the best. I'll take Alabama closer than the experts think.
So not beating that spread of 14.5.
No, inside 2 touchdowns.
All right, we're going to see you after the game of the week on our post-game show, 6 to 7. We'll have Nick Saban live on the air as Alabama continues to warm up here for the SEC on CBS. Game of the week. Our national coverage from CBS is next.